All right, let's look at section 1.2. I'm going to kind of jump back and forth just a little bit. I've got some stuff laying out in front of me, so that way I stay on task. I chase rabbits from time to time, don't want to chase any today. We have a lot of material to cover in a short period of time. What we do not cover, we will actually make sure we address in class. So as we go through this brief explanation of section 1.2, make sure that you please write down your questions that you might have and bring them to class with you, and we'll clarify those things in class. Okay? So the purpose of this section is we want to analyze arguments, and we have to decide what's an argument, what's not. Okay? So there's two ways to do this. The intuitive way, and an intuitive way is the conclusion is the main point of the argument. The premises are what are being used to prove the main point. So the main point of the argument, let's just say the conclusion is it's going to rain. So my first premise would be it's gray outside, and my second premise would be Kathy Saban on 9 News said that we had a 70% chance of rain. So when I look at that, two things come to mind. First of all, I have a strong claim. Intuitively, it's going to rain. Why? Because it's gray out, or dark gray outside, or it's graying outside. And secondly, we have a 70% chance of rain. And so what I'm doing is what's being inferred, and how do we claim that, or how do we confirm that? So I confirm it with looking out the window, seeing it's gray, and I confirm it with the fact that the experts, the meteorologists, have told me that that would happen. Okay, so we keep those things in mind. Intuitive has a factual claim and an inferential claim. Okay, they claim that something is true, and they claim that something is true because something else is true, right? So in order for a passage to be an argument, it has to contain both claims, and inferential and factual. So we need both. So it's inferred that it's going to rain because it's gray outside. I looked out the window, I saw it with my own eyes, and the TV meteorologist has confirmed that concept. Okay, so there's types of non-arguments, and we have to identify and be able to distinguish them from our argument. Okay, so the types we're going to look at are these types here, and we'll go ahead and do that. A warning. So you're going to find these in the textbook, and I find that the textbook gives actually some good information on these, and goes through each one. And so we'll kind of look at it in light of that, and so I'm going to use the book and refer to the book from time to time. Okay, so a warning is a recommendation or an act to avoid an action which doesn't give you a reason. So you should avoid using Federal Boulevard when driving home. Okay, so if I tell you that, how many of you are going to do it? You know, the answer would be none of you, because what I know about Federal Boulevard, I've been on campus for how many hours today? It was fine when I drove, so I'm just assuming that. It lacks an inferential claim. I need a claim, so let's add a claim to it, make it into an argument that is a warning. You should avoid driving Federal Boulevard because why? Okay, here's why. Here's the inferential claim. There was a multi-car accident. It's closed. It will be closed for the next 4 hours or however many hours. Okay, in this case, we have a reason or a premise for the warning. The warning is avoid driving on Federal. The premise is because of the accident. Okay, so keeping these things in mind. So this is how we're going to kind of do it. We're going to kind of do it simple and quick, right? Suppose my dermatologist warns me to stay out of the sun. Okay, this is an argument. Why? Because my dermatologist is an expert. Okay, and therefore it has an inferential claim. So my dermatologist says stay out of the sun because he's an expert. That gives it inferential claim, and therefore it is an argument. Advice. Okay, we're all good at giving it. We're not necessarily good at recognizing it. So let's try to recognize it. A warning is a type of advice, so same considerations apply. Piece of advice alone is not an argument because it lacks an inferential claim. It has to be supported by an argument. You should buy shares of Dow Chemical. You should buy shares of Dow Chemical because they are going to announce the discovery of a synthetic fuel they patented, or a stockbroker says you should buy. So which is the argument? Well, we have an inferential claim. What's the inferential claim? The stockbroker said. So that gives us something to establish the argument. What about number 2, the middle one? It could be an argument. If it is, it's a weak argument because I don't know who said it. It could have been Donald Duck said it. A little bit in a quacky voice, but you get the idea. So we don't know for sure, and so therefore it could be an argument. If it is, it's a weak one. At least my stockbroker gives an inferential support to it, so therefore it becomes a strong argument. Okay? We have statements of beliefs or opinions. There's a difference between an argument and an opinion. Okay? And this is important for us to grasp hold of. Beliefs need no justification. I believe in God. I don't need to justify that. I believe in God. Why? Because I do. You don't believe in God. Why not? Because you don't. You don't have to justify. It doesn't need justification. Okay? An argument needs justification. So keep that in mind. I believe Elvis is alive and serving slush puppies at the Kmart in Longmont. Okay? Since the speaker, myself, provides no evidence, okay, it's not an argument. Okay? Who am I? Maybe I'm some guy who likes Elvis. Okay? This isn't my example. I just use it because it was humorous. Okay. Loosely associated statements are sometimes a writer provides a series of statements around a topic to kind of provoke your thought. So Nietzsche was good at this, if you're a reader of Friedrich Nietzsche. But Chinese philosophers used it a lot. Poetry uses this. But Lao Tzu, Chinese philosopher, said the following: "Not to honor men of worth will keep the people from contention. Not to value goods that are hard to come by will keep them from theft. Not to display what is desirable will keep them from being unsettled of mind." Okay, now in this point he drives to no conclusion, but he dances around the point, dances around the idea. He doesn't really just nail it home. And so that would be a loosely associated statement. It is not an argument. A report is merely a description of a state of affairs. Yesterday, the Congress voted the funding of Iraq war to meet benchmarks. Proponents argued that these benchmarks were necessary to ensure that progress was being made in the war. Okay, it's a report, but it doesn't really do anything but give me a description. The dean says I should add 3 more tests for reporting info from the dean, right? I mean, so the dean told me I should add 3 more tests. If I don't add 3 more tests, you'll all fail this class. Okay? It's just a report from the dean. The dean was heard making this statement. The dean didn't maybe say it to me. I just heard that the dean said it. It's not an argument of any kind because there's nothing to substantiate or support it. Okay? It merely says I need to add 3 more tests in order for this class to be consistent. Right? Okay. Expository passage begins with the topic and expounds upon it. Okay? No inferential claim is made, so an example would be Paul McCartney released his latest album on June 5. It was his first release on iTunes. It was sold at Starbucks as well. In addition, it was available in traditional retail outlets. Okay, so the book gives an example of this on page 18 where it talks about there are 3 similar states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. And it goes through to talk about it. It doesn't prove anything. It just answers questions about it. Okay, expands, gives you information on it, but it doesn't solidify any type of an argument. It's not making an argument. There's no inferential claim. An illustration is an example designed to clarify the meaning of a statement. Okay, and illustrations are the hardest, probably, of all. Good examples found on page 19. The key question is: do the examples serve to clarify or prove the point for which they're related? That's the question. Do they clarify or prove the point? Okay, so on page 19 at the bottom, a bit tricky, hardest to distinguish. Let's see, chemical elements as well as compounds can be represented by molecular formulas. Thus, oxygen is represented by O2, water by H2O, and sodium chloride by NaCl, right? Doesn't mean or argue anything. If it's an argument, it's a poor argument. How's that? It's just saying this is what oxygen represents, and chemical elements and compounds are represented in this form, and here's what they are. It just illustrates what it is. The FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Okay? I didn't prove anything. It doesn't establish anything. It's not an argument. It just gives information. Oops. An explanation, let's see here. An explanation is provides an account of why a particular statement is true. Okay? An explanation answers the why it's true. Okay? An argument answers the question of how we know it's true, but an explanation says why. Okay? So found on page 20, some good information. The thing that I like is the sky definition or example on page 20 at the bottom. The sky appears blue from the Earth's surface because, which that's a premise indicator. If we go back to page 3, right? Light rays from the sun are scattered by particulars in the atmosphere, or particles, in the atmosphere. Okay? It answers why it is true. Why is it true? Why is it true that the sky is blue? Because light rays from the sun are scattered by particles in the atmosphere. So now we know why it's true. So explanations help us. The Yankees will win the American League because they have strong hitting and solid pitching. The Yankees won last year's American League because they have strong hitting and solid pitching. Now, which one is the argument? This is a hard one, but let's look at it. The first statement answers how we know something is going to happen. It's an argument. We know that they will win the American League because they have strong hitting and solid pitching. Okay. The second statement asks why something we know to have happened. That's an explanation. Last year they won it because they had strong hitting. They explained why they won last year. But the argument is that we know that something's going to happen. How do we know? Because they have strong hitting. So these are the two hardest, I think, to differentiate between. So look at these both very, very carefully. And keep in mind, if you need to go back to this PowerPoint slide, that will help you. I recommend that you do. Okay, a conditional statement. Conditional statement is an if and then statement. Okay, it may seem like an argument because then is a conclusion indicator. However, it may also be part of the argument. Example, if it rains, then the grass will get wet. There's a factual claim but no inference. Right? If it rains, the grass will get wet. Nothing inferred. But let's add an inference in, and now we have an argument. If it rains, then the grass will get wet. It rained. Okay, now we have a claim to support it. It rained, therefore the grass is wet. We know it'll rain, grass will get wet if it rains, but that doesn't mean it's wet. It's not wet till it rains. Now we know it rained, therefore we know it's wet, right? So the inference is what gives us the argument, the claim, inferred to the claim, right? Hopefully this helps. We went through it very quickly, but there's a lot of information here. What I would like you to do is I'd like you to use the textbook as you go through and look at each one of these answers. We'll go over them in class. We'll talk about why they are what they are. And write down your questions, bring them to class, and I'll see you soon.